Hey guys, it's been a while since I've done a vlog, so I've decided to do a quick one just to sort of talk about where I'm at, what I've learnt and stuff like that. The reason why I've not made any vlogs is because the drone's been out of action for like 10 days. So yeah, what happened was I went flying in pretty crap conditions. It was about 7 p.m. at night, light was going. It's not why I crashed, but it just flipped out the sky for no real reason. I was kind of in the process of doing some PID tuning, so perhaps I was getting some bits of the tune wrong. It ended up landing in the ground like that, literally soaked in mud. I took the motors off, cleaned them, and then started it up with a friend, and literally this motor exploded. I didn't catch it on video, wasn't expecting it. It just started smoking, it made a loud pop. I've got it somewhere actually. Yeah, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see in there, the light's not great, but you can see it's kind of black. Some of those coils are black. Anyway, I replaced the motor, took like 5 days, and then I put the new motor in and it pretty much did exactly the same thing. And that's when I realised that perhaps the board was messed up, so I actually replaced the entire board. So this is the old board, it's got the new board in there, which works now, so I've been flying that okay. But as you can see, regardless of the fact that I've got it working, the weather outside is terrible. I mean, look at that. That's just awful. You know, I reckon racers from England should get just a little bit more respect, because you know they have to practice in this shit. You know, like Luke Bannister. I mean, props to you, mate. Like, what can you do when the weather's like this? It's shit. Anyway, I need to move. To like Australia. Anyway, I thought I'll just talk about what I've learned. So I thought I'd split it up into two parts: the flying part and then the maintenance part, because I think they're quite different. Everyone wants to fly. Everyone that wants to fly races really wants to fly, and then they just completely forget that there's actually a whole process behind flying. Well, I'm learning that anyway, and I don't mind. I love that. I love that kind of shit. Like I used to have Meccano when I was a kid. I had Lego. I mean, it's very different, but yeah, there's definitely like you've got to have a certain, I don't know. You've got to want to do that kind of thing, I think, in order to really get into racing drones the way they are at the moment. I think in time, in another year or two, they'll start to be a bit more sort of user-friendly, like, you know, people that don't have any understanding on how to solder, how to screw things on, you know, it will just become a lot more simpler. But for now, anyone who wants to get into this is going to have to learn. So anyway, let's talk about flying. So there's a lot of different modes you can fly these in, and obviously everyone wants to get to Acro mode, because Acro mode is the mode that basically just takes the reins off and just lets you just, you know, unleash the full power of the drone, do stuff that you can't do in the other modes, take tighter turns, etc, etc. What have I learned? Well, Acro mode is not too hard actually. It's really not too hard, but that's putting it from a point of view that I've actually downloaded the simulator and I've been flying on the simulator, and just crossing over from the simulator to a real drone, it wasn't that bad. Like, my first flight was fine, it was okay. I had the goggles on. I think I've uploaded it. You know, it's on vlog 4. Didn't feel too bad. It didn't feel too different. Don't know what else to say. I mean, there were some differences. Like, for example, you know, the turning just felt slow and sluggish in real life, and I think that's more to do with the tune of the drone and the settings that I'm flying at and learning that process, than actually, you know, just because the simulator is so rubbish or different or whatever. So I think if you have a chance to go on a simulator, give it a go. If you've never been on a simulator and you're going to do Acro for the first time, I think it will be a bit tricky, because when I first was flying on the simulator, I just was crashing left, right and centre. You know, I couldn't turn properly, I'd drop, I'd lose throttle when I didn't think I would. You know, lose altitude when I didn't think I would, and I had to learn the slow subtleties. So things that I've learned, I guess, with Acro is when you turn, you're going to lose a lot of your sort of altitude if you don't compensate by giving more throttle. There's a lot of like subtle things that you're not going to learn from just hearing me talk about it. Things like when to use yaw, when to use roll, when to use, because you kind of start to, as you pick up Acro, you start to feel that you kind of forever using both yaw and roll at the same time in varying amounts, and it just becomes like a subconscious thing. All I would say is just get out, fly, or get on the simulator, fly on that, and you'll start to understand these things. And there's lots of great YouTubers out there. I'll try and link a few that sort of going through explaining when to yaw, when to roll, how to do this, how to do that. The most obvious thing I could probably say, just as a heads up, is when you fly with this thing. Now the camera's tilted upwards, so when I'm flying along and I'm like that, okay, because that's how normally you're flying forwards. Yaw would normally, obviously, would do this when it's flat, but because you're tilted flying forwards, when you yaw, it kind of starts doing this and looking up at the sky. It will turn and look up to the sky, and it's like, whoa! I thought it was just going to just turn, the horizon. I was just look around, but it doesn't. It kind of makes you look up. So the moment you start yawing, you kind of need to roll in order to correct the, and you kind of almost as well, because it's like that. You kind of have to pitch as well if you want to maintain that heading. If you see what I mean. Sorry, not maintain heading. If you want to maintain that forward velocity they have. So, there's things like that. So yaw all of a sudden makes you tilted, makes you need your roll, and yeah, that can throw you. And the more the camera's tilted upwards, the more these things are exaggerated. So for example, say the camera was at 50 degrees, well, you could be potentially flying like that. At this point, when you yaw, all you're going to do is do that and look up at the sky. It won't actually do much else. In actual fact, then if you wanted to go around corners and things, it's your roll. It's all about rolling. So be aware that the angle of the camera makes a big difference, and the higher the angle, you're gonna have an even higher focus on your roll as opposed to your yaw, because your yaw almost starts becoming roll because it starts looking up and down. So it's all, that's worth mentioning, I guess. Anyway, if it helps. The other thing is, so when setting this up with flying, one of the first problems that I had was I'd fly around level just fine. I wouldn't go upside down. The moment I went upside down, things just went wrong. It would start flipping and just spiral out of control and hit the ground. It took me ages to work out what was actually happening, and it turned out it's very simple but fundamental. So I'm going to share it with you. Is the motors were stopping. So obviously, for any of you guys that don't know, the way the throttle works on these drones, when you kind of first get them out of the box sort of thing, when you have no throttle, the motor's cut off, and when the motor's cut off, you can't then roll, you can't pitch, it's like the drone just becomes dead, like a dead weight. So I was flying along and then trying to do a roll, turning off my throttle, and then what would happen is everything would stop and it would just become almost like a dead weight, and then it would just sort of start spiraling, and then I'd give throttle but I'd be upside down and I'd just turbo into the ground. So there's actually quite a few simple fixes. There are options on I use Clean Flight to configure the drone, but there's things like motor stop. That's an option that you can use. There's also, they've just updated Clean Flight, so there's now something called air mode. So air mode basically means that it thinks the drone is always flying. So even when you're upside down with no throttle, it thinks it's flying. So the motors will still spin at like, I don't know, 5-10% or something. The third thing I've seen is people have like an idle switch. So they'll always, no matter if their stick is completely down or whatever, they'll always have a minimum of like 5-10% of their motors spinning. Right, PID tuning. Oh my god, PID tuning. The PID tuning is, I don't know how to. I'm still in the process of finding out how to tune these things, so I don't want to be talking about it too much. There's lots of YouTubers out there. There's some great ones. Painless 360, he's awesome. Steel has recently done a couple of episodes as well of how he tunes his Alien, and God, that sounds funny. And basically what I've learned is that you kind of want high I. So there's PID, proportional, integral, derivative. See, I did learn something. You want relatively high P's, relatively high I's, and relatively low D's, as far as I gather. It's, in a simple explanation, PIDs are all about correcting the errors that are happening in the real world relative to what you're trying to do with the drone. So you're putting in an input with the stick. What actually happens as a result of you doing that is what the PIDs are all about. So they're to do with the correction process. Okay, so that's a very simple explanation. Now, if you get the numbers wrong, then what you're doing on the sticks will just make the drone go crazy. And then if you've got it literally down to a T, you know, what you do with your sticks is exactly how you want the drone to behave then. You know, the drone will then flip how you want it to. It won't do any weird movements. It won't twitch or oscillate or these sort of things. So it's incredibly important. I'm still learning, so I don't want to share too much on it. When I'm doing the tuning, I can waste 7 batteries easily, just sitting there, plugging one in, you know, plugging it out, doing another set of numbers, you know, trying it again, flying it for a minute, taking it down, blah, blah, blah. I'm not even going to go into it because I think it's something that you just have to learn. I can't teach, I don't know it myself, I'm still learning, so I'll just be wasting your time. But definitely consider PID tuning as an important part of the process. I know when I first had the Ninja Turtle, that was not tuned, and that was terrible. Like, it was doing all the wrong things. It was like it had high vibrations. I mean, granted, I think there was a bent motor shaft, to be fair, so that didn't help. But you know, regardless of that, there was a few things wrong. This out of stock from the box is okay. The PIDs aren't too bad, but the moment you start increasing your rates, because the rates on the stock are just terrible, it's like, you know, flying a bus. But then you increase the rates on your controllers, sorry, on clean flight, so that it's more sensitive. Then you need to start looking at your PIDs again, because it doesn't, you know, it can't handle it. So yeah, there's a lot to learn. There is a lot to learn with the PID tuning, and you know, you just want to find someone that has a similar setup to you on YouTube. You want a basic understanding of what it is you're trying to do, what they mean, and then you just want to work from there. And it's probably going to, you know, from a lot of people that I've spoken to when they first started doing this stuff, they said it took them a month to get their drone flying the way they wanted to. Also, every time you change something on it, change the propellers, change the battery, change, you know, anything really, even the weight distribution, whatever, you can affect it. So it's a real, you know, there is a bit of art to this as well. It's not just science. Anyway, but moving on. So yeah, I just mentioned weight distribution. So that's another thing. So when I first started flying, I would put the batteries, like, you know, inside, further back, further in, on top, you know. I'd have a GoPro, sometimes not a GoPro, you know, all of this stuff made a big difference. So now what I try and do is I try and get the center of mass to be roughly the same place. So the way I do that is, if I've got a GoPro on, or the battery, whatever, I'll tend to just pinch it here, like that, around the middle, so roughly around the flight controller's here, obviously, it's this on this model, but I'll just hold it there and just see what it does. Okay, and if it stays roughly like that, like level, then I know I'm okay. If it's like leaning back, then I'll try and get the battery further forward, or whatever. I'll move the GoPro forward or back, whatever. So, because you want that to be level, and that helps with the tuning, it helps with the flying, it helps with everything. So I do that now every time. Right. Right. So I've sort of kind of like, I don't know if I really fixed on flying there. I kind of moved over slowly and gently to sort of like managing and maintenance, but I wanted to sort of commit some time to maintenance, because it is a thing. So what would I say about maintenance? Yeah, I mean, look how many bits I've already broken on it. I mean, I've got so many things here. I've got literally wires and things all over this desk. I'm not even going to show you because it's kind of embarrassing how unclean this place is. But yeah, there's so much. If I start with stuff that you'll need, soldering iron, you'll need one of them. Trust me. You need a set of like fine instruments and things like that, like these. I've got like tweezers and things to hold stuff, clamps. You know, this saves so much time. You have no idea, but you know, I've got kits and kits of tools. So you'll need like, you know, these are all different sizes, different head types. It's constant process. There's always things that will need doing. Pretty much after every day of flying, I've done something to it. I've crashed it. This is just because I'm a shit pilot, but you know, I've crashed it. This screw's come loose, that screw's come loose. I need to take this apart, or I need to strap this down better. The thing that I always kept doing, zip tie. Oh my god, the amount of zip ties I've used. But you know, this is the controller, the receiver for the unit, and this, because I would always store my batteries inside. Every time I'd have a crash, the battery would slide forward and smash this thing. So I'd have to put another zip tie on it. So every time, this is worth saying, every time you do have a crash or something goes wrong, have a look, pick it up, you know, have a look at, you know, does it still feel firm? Are there any visible wires snapped or cut? You know, is there anything that's broken? You know, are all the propellers turning level? You know, a bent propeller isn't too bad. You know, if I have a bent propeller, I just bend it back, and generally it's all right. Generally, but you know, just checking all these things every time is so important, because you know, if you don't have it, if you forget one thing, you could lose the whole thing, and you know, maybe injure someone or yourself or whatever, set fire to a forest. But so I would say have a look. Maintenance isn't too bad. You know, most things you'll probably be able to fix out in the field if you brought a few propellers and a screwdriver and whatnot. But every now and again you'll do something you like back to the workshop. So if you do burn a motor out, so for a start, when propellers are trying to spin and they've got resistance, so it's trying to spin into the ground, you can burn the motor out. But every time you lose a motor, try and check your ESC, because there's a good chance that you could have damaged the ESC, or it was the ESC that was damaged, and then that's damaged the motor. When I had that mud problem where they got stuck in the mud, and I cleaned them, the ESC that I'd burnt, and then that was actually destroying the motor. So if you've got a motor that's bad, check the ESC. That's what I'll say. Putting propellers, I've written a little list. Putting propellers on the right way sounds daft, I know. I've got an Inspire. I know how to put propellers the right way, so I thought. But you know, I had it on the ground. I armed it. It was ready to take off, and it was doing this, like it was trying to give me like a high five. I was like, "What's cracking off there?" And I put that one on, and that one on wrong. And yeah, obviously the front was going up. But anyway, dead simple, daft things like, you know, just. I mean, you know, actually, I take the Inspire very seriously. I take this a lot less seriously, so that's probably why that happened. But just make sure basic things, like if it starts doing that, one side's going up, you could have put a propeller on, upside down, wrong way, whatever. Okay, if in doubt, unplug everything, start again, start from scratch. You know, the amount of problems that's fixed. Just saying, okay, I don't know what's happening here. I'm going to take the propeller out the compartment. I'm just going to, you know, unplug everything, take the goggles off, pick it up, have a look at it, start from scratch. It's fixed so many things. So don't get too stressed out if you're out flying and you don't know what's happening with it and it's being very unusual. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. I've ran out of my list. I've sort of like, I don't even know how long the video is. Oh God, don't tell me it's 23 minutes. No one's going to watch this for 23 minutes. Right, anyway, I hope some of that was useful. Hopefully, so I've just ordered a QAV-r race blade. Oh yeah. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's fucking awesome. Excuse my English. It is an awesome drone. So good, so fast. So hopefully I'm going to get that working in the next couple of weeks. I'm still working on getting this one to a point at which I'm flying upside down okay, because then I can really start having fun with it. I still feel like this has just been the baby drone. This has been the novice drone. I bought this second hand. It's done me well. It's taught me a few lessons at a much cheaper price than, say, doing it with a QAV Luminaire or whatever. So, but I feel like I'm ready to take it a bit more seriously. So that's why I've gone for the QAV-r. Why the QAV-r? It's just rapid. It's very rapid. It's got a very clean method about it. The way you can take the arms off and just replace an arm. So if you go to a race or whatever. Also, it's just it's just the bee's knees. If you've ever seen it, it's sick. So, but it's going to be technically my first build. So hopefully I've learnt enough in the trial and error of this drone to actually confidently put this thing together and make it fly. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this rather. I don't know if it was informative, but I hope you've enjoyed this video at least. And hopefully I'll be back in the air soon, and I'll hopefully start uploading some decent footage from the GoPro point of view, because at the moment I keep using people videoing it as it flies by, and I don't think that's as good. Bear with me on that one. But anyway, take care guys. I'll hopefully see you soon, and I hope to God the weather gets better, because it is miserable. But anyway, peace.